Hello. Hi there. Just going to wait for Napoleon IIIrd to join us. There we go. This is always the fun, awkward bit. Doesn't seem to be working. Let's try again. Still just trying to get Napoleon IIIrd to join us. Hello!
Hello, sorry about that. My phone decided it would just kick me out constantly.
That's all right.
You know how it is. Technology.
It's always the first fun couple of minutes doing this kind of stuff where I'm just sat there like...
I wonder if anybody's going to show up.
Yeah. It's all right though. How are you?
I got my piano just in case. I'm all right.
Okay.
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Keeping busy.
Yep, good.
Good. Well, I will welcome you. So, Napoleon IIIrd, or James Mabbott, but aka Napoleon IIIrd. For people that aren't aware of what we're doing, just a little check-in. We are just having a chat with artists who have been supported by Launchpad or who have accessed other support in and around Yorkshire. So for those of you just kind of getting to know us as well, Launchpad is an emerging talent development programme across Yorkshire for music creators and music professionals. So we do support through music advice sessions, panels, recording, live opportunities, and all sorts of other things. So we're trying to shed some light on support that artists get, especially in Yorkshire. So we're inviting James on today to have a little chat with us about the kinds of support that he's had. So he has worked with us as Launchpad. So I don't know if you want to say a little bit about yourself and what you do, and just like how you got involved in Launchpad originally.
Okay, yeah. I'm a musician. Well, I started as a musician, but now I'm kind of a musician and sound artist and composer, and kind of artist in general. Kind of trying to do all sorts of bits and pieces, mainly to keep me interested in making things more than anything else. I got involved with Launchpad through, I don't know, really. I can't remember how it was. It was a funny time to get involved, really, because it was just before everything stopped in the world.
Yeah, so you applied, was it the February round this year that you applied?
February round, yeah, and I heard literally like a week before lockdown happened, I think. So it's been obviously an odd time for everybody. So I've not had a huge amount of involvement with Launchpad yet, but I'm hoping that start up now with any luck. Unless we all go into crazy lockdown again,
so you did manage to do us you did manage to do us one of our virtual house gigs, which was kind of a new thing for us as well. You know, I think that was the second one that we'd done, and obviously all of the live opportunities we were wanting to offer to artists had just all disappeared, and so we were like, what else can we try and do to still get people to show their work and things. So you did a really awesome stream show for us, so yeah, that was brilliant.
To be honest, thank you. To be honest, I was so long ago, I completely forgotten about it.
It was like 5 months ago.
That did happen, though.
Yeah, what is time?
Yeah. No, I remember that, yeah.
Good. I'm glad. Well, we remember it. I mean, it's probably less memorable because you're just playing in your house with a camera, right? It's not quite.
Yeah. I had lots of flashing lights though. That was slightly unusual.
Yeah, no, that was really great. So yeah, hopefully we'll continue to do more stuff with you. but I think one of the main reasons we wanted to get you on today was to chat about Arts Council funding. So we did a panel last week with some of the members of Arts Council and some artists that have been supported through Arts Council for their National Lottery project grants. But we've also just seen that the Developing Your Creative Practice fund has now reopened, which had been shut throughout the last 6 months, so they could divert their funding to emergency funds and things. So yeah, that has just reopened again, and it's a very short deadline, quick turnaround. 5th of November, I think, is the deadline. But you received this fund for yourself and your development and your practice. So I wonder if you could maybe tell us a little bit about maybe where you were at when you thought about applying to begin with, and then what you were hoping to and what you have used it for. That'd be great.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So I applied for a year-long project. At the time, I was making all sorts of different things under a few different names. So I do my music as Napoleon III, and then I do all my sound art as Napoleon IV, and then I produced music for film and things like that under my own name, James Mabbott. And I was just starting to feel like it was kind of confusing for me because there's so much overlap between things that it started to not make any sense. So when I was talking to people about it, I found it difficult to describe exactly what I did and exactly what my art was. So I came up, I learnt about this fund and realised it would be a really good way of me spending time actually just thinking about what it is I do, and whether or not there are any dividing lines between things, whether or not I should be working under a few pseudonyms or whether I should just do it all under one name, or whether any of that really mattered at all.
Yeah, because I guess there'll be other artists as well that do things like that. So the kind of the band stuff that you've done is more kind of, I guess what you would say is the more commercial element of music, in terms of it not being maybe sound art or soundscape stuff, like actual like performances in venues and that sort of thing, and releasing albums and going down that route. And then the other work that you've done to sort of complement it being more like sound art. But I guess there are a lot of artists that do that and have those different creative outlets as well. So yeah, it's interesting that you kind of use this funding to take that time to maybe reshape or rethink that a little bit.
Yeah, very much. And I kind of wanted to think about what exactly it is that I make as well. So I called the project the pretentious name of defining my creative signature, I think was how I termed it. And that's essentially just figuring out what it is I do and what it is that links all these things that I do together. And this just basically gave me a year-long opportunity to explore that. So I worked with a mentor, and I spent time kind of going through all the different bits of my practice and all the bits of my interests and all the contacts, all the people I knew, and thinking about how all these things were connected and whether or not there needed to be these dividing lines. It was a very interesting project, I think. I got to go and visit exhibitions and sound art pieces and all sorts of things. Obviously,
R&D.
Halfway through the year, lockdown happened again, so that was a sudden switch for the project. Which, I mean, again, it was really useful because I'd spent all this time thinking about what it is I did, which allowed me to carry on doing that stuff, but online. With the Launchpad gig, and with I also run music workshops and kind of they're like long sound, well, like hour-long sound art making workshops where I've been doing it.
So in a way, having some of that funding and time over the lockdown period, I guess, because it is, if people have been able to do that, like to be able to have that time to actually develop and rethink, and everyone's having to react to the situation, so actually it's kind of forcing a lot of people to rethink. So if you've got, you'd sort of set out to do that a little bit anyway, perhaps hopefully it's not been as much of a shock to the system to be trying to weave your way through what's been going on as well.
Yeah, I felt quite fortunate that it had cropped up at that time. Well, not fortunate, that's the wrong word for this whole situation, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I was lucky to have had this time before to reflect on what I do. It allowed me to, as I say, allowed me to carry on and work through it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I found it incredibly useful and interesting, and kind of came out the other end of it, because I've literally just, I sent the final report in last couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago, I don't know, at some point recently. So I've literally just come out the other end. I felt it's been really, really useful, and I kind of recommend anybody else, if they're wondering what it is they do or where to go, it's a really, really good way of spending some time doing it.
Yeah, so it's a really great fund, and I think the trying to define the difference between the projects grants and the developing your creative practice. When I've read and seen Arts Council stuff, they talk about the projects grant very much being it has to have like a public benefit, a public engagement of some kind, whereas the developing your creative practice is very much more about individual artist creative development. And
Yeah,
it seems like from what I gather as well, it's a lot about making a change in what you're doing, so not necessarily completely going off piece and like changing, like I don't know, I'm going to learn a million new instruments, or it doesn't have to be that extreme, I don't think, but in terms of like the direction you're going in, the people you're working with, new collaborations or building networks, it seems it's kind of about that. So did you feel like when you were like writing your application and thinking about the project, did you have that in mind? Was it about this like merging of what you were doing, or was there anything else that was like particularly you wanted to do something different with what you were doing before?
it was mainly about, for me, well, one point actually that you mentioned you came up on there that I'll touch on first, is I got some advice from the Arts Council before, which I recommend doing to anybody who wants to apply.
Yeah,
They're
they're
really
really good.
great. It's slightly more difficult at the moment because you've got to do everything you can't phone anybody up, you've got to do all over email. But a lot of Develop Your Creative Practice grants get turned down because people think they need to include some kind of outcome or a project or something, a product at the end of it. And you shouldn't have that at all. It should be purely about developing what you do in your practice.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was. I thought I should mention that. What
Yeah, no,
was
that's a
it?
good point.
What was the question? It was
About what your kind of change was from what you were doing before.
well, I wanted, as I was saying, I wanted to know if I should do everything under different names. So that was my change. But also, I wanted to focus on. I wanted to discover what it was that made my music and my art. My music and my art,
Mm-hmm.
its creative signature, harking back to the project title.
Because quite a lot of the time you don't necessarily, as I think a lot of us as artists understand that there's not always that time to do that. There's not always time to really delve in and reflect and discover stuff and research and go see other things, because actually sometimes you're just doing, aren't you? You just kind of don't get that chance. So actually to be able to delve into that is a really, really useful thing. And obviously in this time, it's kind of a good time to do that. It's a good time to be delving in creatively. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it's worth us talking a little bit about like how you found the process of it, like the application, did you get, like you said a little bit about, you got some advice beforehand. Did you speak to anyone else about it, or obviously there's guidance and things out there?
Yeah.
How you found it?
I'd get as much guidance as you possibly can, basically. The Arts Council are really helpful. They can give you impartial advice because they're not the ones judging the applications, so they can tell you honestly what they think, what might not work, which is really useful. And I got advice as well from, as I say, I got somebody to kind of mentor me for a few sessions, just to kind of talk through stuff and figure things out. And I got her to have a look at the application beforehand. So she came back to me with feedback. She very kindly offered to do that. So I just recommend getting advice from as many people as you can, really. That's key. Otherwise, it's quite a simple process. It's all set out really. The guidance is really clear on the Arts Council website. Make sure you read it.
It seems a bit of an easier process than the projects grants one, which is not to put people off the projects grants, because actually that can be a really great fund, especially thinking about it for music creators. You know, that could be great for a tour, it could be great for a sound installation, it could be great for these things where it's got that public engagement. And actually I think, you know, the amount is higher, that's up to 15 grand, this is up to 10 grand. But there is that like you said, it's that difference. It actually kind of shouldn't have an outcome.
Yeah, definitely. You're more sure about your practice, and you're going to have. I set some goals at the during the application. So I had, I wanted art commissions by the end of it, and things like that, or a certain amount of art commissions and things out of it by the end of that, and other little goals like I think one of the goals was an interview in an art magazine. That was more of I want an interview in an art magazine. But
but it's good to have those goals, isn't it? Because, you know, there is that danger that if you don't plan it, you know, you still have to show that it's a well planned and well thought out not project but process or amount of time or what it is that you're doing. Because, you know, that idea that actually you could just be like, well, I'm just gonna try some new stuff. Like, it's not enough to say that, is it? So you have to kind of go into actually what it is you're going to do and how you plan it. And did you take quite a while to actually put it together and plan it and think about it and mull over it, or was it something that happened quite quickly?
No, I've been thinking about it I probably thought about it for a couple of months or a month beforehand, and then made the application. Obviously, there's not the time to do that for this deadline. But I'm guessing quite a lot of people will have been reflecting on what they do over the last few months anyway, so it might be a bit more obvious right now.
I feel like this first deadline may also be for people that have they were putting in for the next round of developing your creative practice, and then it got kind of slashed because of the emergency funding. So it feels to me a little bit like the first deadline is like an opportunity for those people that are already set up. Because the other thing that's worth saying is in terms of admin, you've got to set up on the granteeing portal, haven't you? And that can take like a while to get verified and things like that. So there is some admin involved, which is worth just mentioning.
Yeah, because that takes a week or two to get access on that. So you've got to make sure you get that straight away. Yeah,
definitely.
Is the internet connection really bad? Is it me?
It's glitching a tiny bit, but it's okay. It just sort of.
I'm getting kind of roboting a little bit.
Yeah, I know. It could be either one of us. I don't know. Who knows?
I'm in a cave, basically. So.
I was going to ask you whether you'd had any involvement in Arts Council projects or anything like that before. Like, I think trying to give people a sense of where in their, I don't necessarily want to use the word career, but in their artistic journey or whatever, in their life of being an artist, at what point is it a useful time to apply for this? And maybe if you could say a bit about like where you were at, or what you'd done anything beforehand similar, like Arts Council or.
Well, I've done quite a few projects, Arts Council funded projects. Started about I don't know 5 or 6 years ago, doing projects that were funded by the Arts Council. So I've had quite a few, maybe four or five funding, like successful funding applications from them for projects like sound installations. There was a community sound installation working with local schools that I put in an application for. That was kind of to build a sound installation based on the roots of the local river, and working with schools and community groups. And that was all Arts Council funded. And then a couple of sound installations. And there was something else as well, but I can't remember what it was. So yeah, I've done quite a few, and I think it's probably quite good to have at least got, personally, I think it's probably a good idea to have got an application beforehand with the Arts Council, just so you understand how the process works. And I mean, I don't think it gives you any more chance of getting the grant or having previous ones. I think it just means you're more experienced and have a little bit more knowledge on what else maybe want.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. I think that idea that, you know, there's the whole idea of like, how do you get a job without having had a job? Like, it's that catch-22, and I think it can feel like that, especially to people that aren't, say, haven't been doing things like sound art or installation work, which is where Arts Council has typically kind of funded more like music creators. But it seems like they're getting more and more open with things like funding stuff like an album, or, you know, obviously that's project grants, but funding things like pop artists or rap artists and things like that.
Yeah.
So and obviously with everything that's happened at the moment with the new opening of developing your creative practice, they're putting in, it's something like 5 times the amount of money than it was this time last year. So they really are trying to encourage individuals to apply, and it's up to 10 grand, isn't it? So, you know,
Yeah.
there's that idea that actually if you've not been involved in Arts Council stuff before, it may be that you go for a lower amount of money. If you have been involved in things, it, like you say, it's not like a tip, it's not like you have to have done Arts Council sort of before, but it's like you say, it's that getting that experience, isn't it, to know how to think about your work in a way that can be publicly funded. You know, that's
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a tricky thing to get your head around, but I think once people start to become aware of it and just sort of try it out, I think, yeah. And also, did you manage to get it first time, or have you had an experience with like putting applications back in? Or...
I think like 3 out of the 4 times I got it first time. Once we had it, I had it back, and they put recommendations in as to this bit was a bit you need to kind of work on there. So we resubmitted it and then got it later on.
Yeah, that seems to be a bit of a typical story of quite a lot of people that have said, you know, they've submitted, they've had it back, they got knocked back, but they've had kind of notes, and then, you know, that idea of not being disheartened if you didn't get it. And sometimes it could be that they just happen to prefer different applications, or they've had stronger applications, which
yeah,
you can't
or
do a lot about.
they've had so many applications they just had to make a judgment call, and they had to mark it down on something very little.
Yeah.
Especially at the moment, there's a lot of people applying to the Arts Council.
Yeah.
I mean, you're obviously saying there's more money available right now, but there's a lot of people getting applications in as well. Not that that should deter anybody from doing it, obviously.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? We want to encourage people to go for it, and to use, you know, to try and get the opportunities and support that's out there. It's figuring out how to think about it beforehand and how to do it right. And I think we're actually talking about putting a specific panel around developing your creative practice again later in November, which will be more for the further deadlines that they're doing. So it feels like, you know, you've just got to inform yourself, haven't you, about this stuff.
Yeah.
So is it leading on to anything more specific for you? You know, now that you've kind of finished this part of the process, or are you applying again?
There's lots of things in the pipeline now because I've had the time to think about what I'm doing. So there's loads of projects that have come out of it. Part of the I wanted to do more collaborations with people because I've always been somebody who wanted to just work on their own, and I've decided that maybe that's not such a great idea. I should probably try and work with other people. So there's lots of collaborations that come out of it. There's a few big projects in the pipeline. One very, very big project, which will hopefully be seeing light of day soon.
Amazing.
I'm not going into any further details now because it's still a bit up in the air, but that's pretty exciting. So yeah, there's lots of things that have come out of it without a doubt, and I feel in much more of in a much better position to be able to actually think about all these projects and juggle them and understand exactly what it is I want from them, because I've had this time to sit and think about what I do and make stuff as well. That's actually a really important part of it. They want you to spend time working on actually just making things.
Yeah, it's not just a case of sitting and thinking about what you want to do, but actually like trying stuff out, testing new ideas, testing new instruments, like, you know, new collaborations, like you said. Without
the need for any outcome, really. Just making stuff for the sake of making stuff. You don't need to have an album or a installation or any kind of project at the end of it. You can just literally sit in the studio and make things, and that's fine.
Yeah, and that's like it feels like that's quite a rare thing as well, doesn't it? Because, you know, with a lot of the stuff that I've been involved in, especially, it is all project outcomes. So you're always kind of racing towards that finish line. But actually, this is a bit of a different mental space as well, to be able to just go, oh, right, I'm exploring, I'm researching, I'm collaborating.
It's quite freeing, actually, because you don't often, normally you're kind of working towards a project, you're recording an album, whatever, and like, you don't often get time to say, I'm just going to make something. It doesn't matter if it's rubbish or not, I'm just going to make it. And that's lovely to be able to do that. It kind of frees you up a bit.
Yeah, because that's part of the process, right? Isn't it? You've got to make those mistakes or make those kind of rubbish songs and stuff to get to the good ones sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, but I do.
Yeah,
They're not all bangers.
No, not all of them. Especially recently.
That's awesome. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we can cover about that, or if there's any other little like tips or anything that you might have for other people that are thinking of applying for it.
I'm just trying to think of any tips, really. I think the one we've already mentioned, the best tip really is just to make sure you get as much advice as you can from anybody.
Yeah.
There's always somebody you can talk to about it. I'm pretty sure if they got in touch with you guys, you'd be able to point them in the right direction. Yeah,
definitely. If anyone wants to drop us a line, we can send links, or put in touch with Arts Council, or even we do run bi-monthly, so every fortnight we run advice sessions, which probably wouldn't be specific to Arts Council funding, but we could at least kind of talk a little bit about it in the way that we're doing today. Direct people. So
and get somebody to read over your application as well, somebody with experience of doing Arts Council applications. And that's really important
in plenty of time.
Don't send it like 2 hours before the deadline.
I know artists do tend to leave things a little bit last minute, don't we? But it's a good learning process, isn't it? And you know, going through all these different levels of support, and like we've talked on some of these, we've been talking about Launchpad and also Help Musicians, and trying to cover a bit of Arts Council, PRS Foundation. There are all these different things out there, and it's kind of it feels like there's a lot on the artist, on you, to try and figure out where you are at, what you want to do, and what the right level of support is. So that's what these sessions are about. That's what Launchpad is about. You know, we're trying to help people identify where to go, because actually, you know, aiming for the Momentum PRSF fund when you're just starting out as a band is probably not the right way to be going, and like, you know, needing to be finding the right way to direct yourself. So hopefully these kind of conversations is what is going to help those people. So, but yeah, I'm well excited to hear what you do next and hear about this new project, and it's really exciting.
Thanks. So
well, thanks very much for talking to us, James. And if anyone wants to check them out, it's Napoleon IIIrd. Do you want to do a little tag handle thing or website or anything?
Should I type something in? Well, I'll tell my website. I'll tell you what, there's loads, all my sound art in there as well, and kind of all the projects. So I should have done this before.
So make sure you give Napoleon IIIrd a follow, say hello, check out his website. There's all sorts of things on there, and we'll leave it there.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. Good to speak to you.
Yeah, nice to speak to you too, mate, and have a nice evening.
Thanks. You too. Take care. Bye. See you later.
Bye.